So it's rumor time, once again. And we like to cover a lot of different things on this channel, especially when there's some pretty interesting rumors. I was going to say spicy, but these are pretty interesting. And so we've got a look at a couple rumors from Intel's graphics card lineup. Basically like what we can kind of expect to see, not necessarily in specifics of like the cards themselves because we're still a couple years out, but we kind of can get some rough general ideas of what we can kind of expect to see. So I want to take today's video to kind of go over all of that, talk about some of the features we haven't seen before, and I apologize, I have some notes here. The kind of some of the stuff that's happening to stuff we already see, like integrated graphics, things like that, prices, release dates, etc. But I also want to kind of talk about a little bit of the background. So if you're unfamiliar, Intel has recently, or actually about a year ago, went out and they announced that they're going to be starting to work on graphics. They're going to be working on upgrading their graphics and making discrete graphics for consumers. Now, what the big surprise is, Intel is actually the #1 graphics supplier on the planet, and that's because of course, integrated graphics. But what we really don't see is, of course, dedicated graphics from them. And while we have AMD and NVIDIA both producing their own cards, and NVIDIA at the moment is kind of unrivaled and unmatched, so they're overpricing things, in my opinion. We kind of can take a look at AMD, who hopefully will be coming out with the Radeon 3000 series, which will also hopefully do some competition and lower prices. We've got a third factor in there, which I think will help stop kind of times like this, where right now there's not any competition for one, so the one will just be overpriced. I think if we have 3 different cards, at least that way we'll always have competition. Of course, profits will be less, but we'll have a little bit more competition, so prices will stay low for all you gamers and all of us out there that are buying these cards. So the name, or the rumored name, of these cards are supposedly the Intel Z. It's XE. Now I don't know if that's trying to go like Intel Xeon, but you cut off the EN because we don't need that. I don't know. Interesting choice of I guess naming, and we don't have like any numbers. I would think that maybe we'd get like an Intel XE like 3000. I think since the time these come out, supposedly in 2020, we can expect to see something along that name scheme. So maybe since we're up to like Radeon 3000 and NVIDIA 2000 series, I think we should probably go through and just assume that's going to be somewhere around the ballpark of 4,000 to 5,000. If I were to take a guess, if we continue going on that naming scheme, because all they try to name similarly. Also, let's talk about a little bit of some of the interesting features that are also coming. So part of the thing is they've also come up with this idea, there's been some rumors circulating, the fact that Intel has going to be developing something called Adaptive Sync, which is similar to what AMD FreeSync, NVIDIA G-Sync, all that stuff. And so this is basically going to be Adaptive Sync, or Intel's version, which means that it's less proprietary information getting copyrighted, and more options, well, not copyrighted, but more options to choose from in the proprietary syncing softwares. So that basically means that monitors may have a little bit more support. We just may get a lot more support across the board. Now, part of why this is a big deal is this may also mean that this may be getting rolled out to CPUs with integrated graphics. And I mean, obviously that's not necessarily going to make a big deal for those people that are gaming on a CPU, because most people don't game on integrated graphics. For those that do, it's really depressing, so let's not go there. But for integrated graphics, we've got ourselves hopefully getting this feature rolled out, which means that we may just get it for the people that are using it for workstations, or people like my parents, for example, that have like a little workstation or a little system they just have integrated graphics on. There'll be something for interesting and less screen tearing and all that lovely stuff that comes with all the syncing stuff. Yeah. Let's also talk about the integrated graphics in general. Supposedly, since they've got a lot of like the veterans they stole from AMD, or not necessarily stole people, they have people from AMD, a lot of the graphics executives. Basically, they're planning on not only developing discrete graphics, but also doing something along the lines of integrated graphics, upgrading it, something along the lines of where the Ryzen 2200G was. Kind of get more of that kind of style that AMD is doing, where you have like processor and you have those integrated graphics cores. Same thing with Intel, so they have their own integrated graphics, and you basically buy it, and then you can actually play games on integrated graphics, which will be something that I can't make memes anymore about, which will be depressing. I apologize. Let's also talk about the fact that the lineup, I would assume, will fall somewhere up, like where we can expect to see the next generations, because it probably won't be this generation we'll be competing with, but probably the next generation. And I have a feeling, since we're taking a look at like past generations and how fast we're advancing, if we kind of stay on this track, I would expect to see something along like anywhere from like a 1070 or 2070 at the moment, to like a next generation TI series from NVIDIA. If we would just kind of take a guess of where I'd expect to see stuff, especially since Intel has, of course, beaten AMD out in graphics by processors for speed wise and gaming performance wise. For the last couple of years, I expect to see them do that, or try to beat out the competition as well. Obviously, I'm hoping for a lot of competition because regardless, across the board, we'll all get lower prices, and I don't think anyone will complain. So basically, effect on the market. I wanted to also take it today to talk about how this is going to affect the market. So basically, when you have two companies that are competing with each other, and you add a third one in there, profits are going to drop. If you're into stocks or something, I don't know, but I would assume that the profits won't be that great when you have a third competitor. And I assume Intel is going to be a pretty strong competitor too, since it is Intel and they have really good processors. I would assume they'd kind of bring that same aggressive strategy of having high clock speed or better performance gaming-wise, kind of bring that to the table. I mean, you never know. AMD is doing a good job competing with them right now. With some rumors coming out, it's really competitive with AMD. So I'm just saying, and they've also got some nice graphics in line. So I'm just saying that it will be, they're not like, a low lack competitor. These are people that clearly know how to, build some stuff, build some tech. I would be assuming that they'd be able to put some decent competition out. So overall, I think that we're going to have a lot more split. We're going to have pure Intel fanboys. We're going to have some NVIDIA fanboys. We're going to have AMD fanboys. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised, since Intel will now have their CPUs and graphics, and AMD will now have their CPUs and graphics. NVIDIA is kind of missing out. They just have their graphics. Obviously, they have a lot more AI, and they're diversified in there. But just saying, that's a little interesting thing there. Let's also talk about prices. So right now, I'm assuming whenever this stuff drops, looking at the past couple generations, I'm assuming that whenever we have to keep in account for like inflation, some people in the United States have tariffs, there's a lot of things that I really couldn't give a really accurate price. I'm assuming that we'd still have low-end budget options like around $300, 150 to 400, somewhere in there. I'd assume we'd have like the average gamer options. I'd assume we'd have like a high-end card, like an $800 card, and something maybe in the thousands if NVIDIA keeps this really interesting pricing strategy up. Yeah, I would expect to see something along those lines, but I'm not expecting to see. Obviously, Intel is already dipped in the integrated graphics, and those come free with their stuff. And since we're already getting equivalents of like GT 1030s with the integrated graphics, if they follow AMD's route, then I would expect to see something that would be a little bit better than that. So maybe starting at like a 1050 Ti currently, upwards, I would expect to see, since that's of course an improvement over those integrated graphics. And then as for release dates, next year, it's 2020 is when these rumors suggest. So it's really going to be interesting to see what part of 2020, because I would assume, we're going to have this current RTX 20 series from NVIDIA, and I expect whatever series, if we have another series after that, then I expect Intel to drop, or they may get done engineering it, drop it, and then NVIDIA may be forced to drop something else, and AMD will be forced to drop something else. So I'd expect either Intel will cause action, or Intel will react to action in 2020, and that's when we can expect to see some of these really interesting competition, at least in the graphics card market, because right now processors are just AMD and Intel, and things are pretty hot at the moment. So I want to thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for joining me this far in this video. It's very appreciated. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Check out my channel for other cool tech-related news, reviews, builds, videos, things like that. Have a good night. Well, I don't know whatever time it is for you. Bye.